What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories. Man, I'm having physical lag. I waved such a delay. I just came back from taking laps around the neighborhood. It is like midnight. I just came back from a jog and I'm like, you know what I need to do? Record some RPG horror stories. So that's what we're gonna do for today. Let's get to it. Submission for your approval from Steven. Hey there from Newfoundland, long-time listener here. So, been thinking about this older story of mine lately, and given that you asked the people who had submitted stories send them again, since they were buried under notification messages, so here it goes. My favorite failure as a DM, that turned out to be a win for everyone. So this was going on around the far of past of 2001, when I and my gaming group had been playing and enjoying 3rd edition D&D, but one of my players had an issue with how broad the various equipment kits were. He wanted to make his own customized thief toolkit by personally selecting each and every item it would contain. I agreed under the understanding that if he doesn't have a bit of equipment that he needs for a given action, he'd be out of luck. He agreed wholeheartedly. He then made a detailed inventory of ultra-specific tools and items ranging from chisels, lockpicks, saws, wedges, hammers, specific gauges of wire, oils, chalk dust, grease, markers, wax tablets, etc. He then topped it all off by asking for a very specific sculpture from an artisan who made wax figures, but that'll be a detail best revealed later on. Either way, flash forward several game sessions and the party is going through an evil transmuter's tower and they find themselves in his private study. While looking around the small library lab, they see the grimoire of the BBG just laying out in mahogany desk, the board of which was surrounded by protective runes that cast a dome of disintegration spell over the contents of the desk, like kind of a killer security system. Party wizard identified the magic at work and that to try and touch the spellbook without knowing the magic word would result in instant death with no corpse to resurrect. The thief of the party just smiled, like he's been waiting for just this kind of situation. Okay, so I'll hop up on a chair, use my forceps to measure roughly how far the book is from the edge of the desk of each side. Then I'll walk under the desk, though playing a halfling, and use my string and chalk to mark out where the book should be. Then I use my hand drill to make 4 holes in the desk top from underneath, so I can use my jigsaw to cut the hole to hole, just let the spellbook drop onto the floor in front of me. I was slack-jawed, just absolutely floored how his equipment had been put to use. The rest of the party was perched to the edge of the seats, waiting to hear the heist was going to be successful, and I had no reason to deny him that victory. The way he planned out how the theft would work, just as simple enough to be viable, he made the plan so specific that it felt like a step-by-step how-to guide to a grand larceny. All I had to do was then assign difficulty to his disabled device skill based on what he's done. Since he brought the gear with specific uses in mind and had figured out how to use mundane artisan equipment to best high-level magic, I couldn't bring myself to give him a higher than an average difficulty check, which he passed with ease. But he wasn't done yet. Awesome. I put the spellbook in my backpack and attached the wax statue to the bit of desktop I cut out a minute ago by melting a bit of the bottom of it and pressing it against the wood. Then I put some of the small metal pins into the underside of the desk and bend them to hold the insert up like it was never touched. I started laughing when I finally got myself under control and asked for clarification. So you cut out a part of the desk, dropped it down, stole the spellbook, wedged the part cut out back into place so it looks undamaged from a distance, but in place of the most prized possession of this mage, he left an immensely detailed wax sculpture or raised arm, giving him the middle finger. He nodded, with the biggest smile I've ever seen on his face as a response. All the while, the rest of the group is nearly pissing their pants with laughter at the image. The rest of the group took as motivation to be a lot more specific about their equipment, how they use it, and not just hand-waving how they do things while they roll the d20 and made their role-play portion of the game a lot more flavorful going forward. The thief of the party also started leaving middle finger statues at specific high-end robberies as a calling card a la the Phantom in the Pink Panther movies with his monogrammed glove. Also, the transmuter became an ongoing threat as he was not only humiliated by the theft, but also needed to get those writings back so he'd have spells again. So I hope you enjoyed the story, and for anyone out there who's listening, please take a note from our players and dare to specify. The results can be astonishing. Okay, I lied, it's not an RPG horror story. In fact, it's an RPG galore story, but you know what? I read it and it was just so funny and wholesome. I'm just imagining the table just giggling with laughter. I love this kind of stories. I love when players genuinely immerse themselves into the world and think about the stuff the characters physically can do in the world, realistically try to use the elements and the tools and the things within the world to create such fantastic, clever things like this. I love that, to use their whole world and the kitchen sink at their disposal to the best of their ability out there, because this is cool. I love this. Thank you so much for submitting this story. I really do appreciate that. All right, this time around, the rest are going to be RPG horror stories, so let's go ahead and get the first one for today. Prestidigitation Issues by Magus. Hey, hope all is alright. Hope I would get this minor story off my chest. I swear it's not a minor story that goes into deeper horror without realizing it. No major sins being hid here. Just a collection of small nicks that build up. This was my first time being a DM, playing 5e's Minds of Phandelver module, and I thought I would do a small bit of homebrew. Every caster would get their signature cantrip for free. This meant wizards, sorcerers, and bards would get Prestidigitation, clerics would get Thaumaturgy, druids got Druidcraft, warlocks got Eldritch Blast, and artificers got Mending, and it would not count towards the cantrip count. I was tempted on also doing this for paladins and rangers. You tell me your thoughts. But that's a side tangent. I'm pretty sure either in Tasha's or in Xanathar's or one of those books out there, one of the third-party books, there's actually a fighting style for Paladin and Druid where basically one gets cantrip for clerics. Maybe they get spells for clerics. No, they get cantrips, I think. And the other get cantrips from Druid, like Shillelagh. Ranger with Shillelagh sounds super fun because you could just build literally a ranger that primarily focuses on wisdom, has our main weapon just be a quarterstaff or some such, and just bunkathon everything out there, which would be kind of sick. Overall though, I really don't see a problem with Paladin and Ranger having cantrips, and honestly I find it really weird that out of all the half-casters out there, those two for whatever reason don't have cantrips, which is really strange to me. Artificers can get things like Message or Mending, which I guess totally makes sense for them, but they can also get offensive cantrips like Firebolt or Green Flame Blade, so I don't know. Trying to remember, I believe I ended up with Sorcerer, Paladin, Bard, and Problem Wizard. Sorry for the upcoming vagueness, this was around the time of the virus, and my memory hasn't exactly been the most friendly. While my focus was trying to focus on the game, I was quick to pick up on a habit of the wizard. He loved to use Prestidigitation on fallen enemies to defile them, often making them look more rank than before or covering them with unpleasant smell. I didn't even need to ask my players about this and asked him not to do that, with him replying, "Well, I don't know what else I could do with it." The spell has been used plenty in the past by myself and numerous players, and I told him how flexible it could be in some interactions, and sometimes just need to make a bit more of a different approach. Prestidigitation and really most of the utility cantrips out there, I mean, I guess aside from guidance and stuff, but like Prestidigitation, Druidcraft, even Thaumaturgy even, they really don't have a lot of in-combat use cases from what I can understand. I suppose some people can try to find a way to make them combat specific, but generally it's very roleplay specific, and I think it helps more in social situations and thinking outside the box rather than rolling for attack roll or anything like that. But there's more to Prestidigitation than just soiling somebody. You can flavor food, you can make different scents, you can put a little symbol and stuff, a little glyph or something, which I think would be kind of cool. I mean, I don't know, man. Prestidigitation is a complex spell, not just to say out loud, because I'm pretty sure many of us mispronounce it so many times that even to this day, I sometimes fumble. But it's also depending on how much you understand how the spell works and your creativity or what you do with it in the current given moment. It can be very situational, could be great in some situations, it kind of uses in others, but I think limiting Prestidigitation to just stinkify somebody is, I mean, it's kind of funny for the first 3 times, and it's like, okay, well, you just make another person stinky, I guess. His next attempt, using it to mark items from chests that he wanted. That's the same as calling dibs before exploring who could use what's best. And when they finished raiding the red brand's base, he wanted to place an emblem on it, as if to tell the black spider they had taken their space. Alright, first off, you can only have 3 effects of press active at once. Secondly, they only last an hour. And are you sure the black spider will be dropping by in the time frame, let alone recognize what that sign would even mean? Third, you'll be seen defacing public property in Phandalin. I mean, I guess he did follow what I say, but it was not in a way that felt too comfortable. In the end, we were able to finish up module without major issues and some fun story beats along the way. One of which had our sorcerer think the man hiring them was going to backstab them after they handled the situation at the mines. Another where Paladin felt like they broke their oath by not being able to protect the party, talking to a priest about it to realize that bad luck and unfaithful events do not determine her creed, and that if she worried that she broke her oath from it, then she still stood firm on where she wanted to be, just a bit wavered from the dice. I understand what your intention was here to do, and you obviously wanted to give somebody some iconic spells they can have, but I feel like if they really wanted to do that, you could just ask your players if they wanted to start with it. The one thing I can say is cantrips is an easy one to do. If you just give players a freebie cantrip, honestly, I don't think it's that bad. And I mean, some of the races start with a cantrip. I know tieflings start with Thaumaturgy, or I think some tieflings start with Thaumaturgy. Depends on the type of tiefling you are. I think you get a different cantrip. Oh yeah, no, you get a different cantrip. Depends on different tiefling that you are. Regardless, I feel like you'd handle yourself just fine. And at the end of the day, I guess just something to learn for the future. If anything, you learned the lesson of don't give that player that one specific spell they'll never make use of unless just to soil someone's pants or something. I don't know. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. Someone doesn't understand their own durability, let alone everyone else's. from Connor. Hello Morrow, I have a story for you from my very first campaign, so details might be hit or miss, but I hope you enjoy my misery. So a bit of backstory. Not much though. My very first campaign was done in Starfinder, a sci-fi variation of Pathfinder for those unaware. The DM who had previously experienced decided to let us homebrew a bunch of races into the game to be more comfortable because this was the first time playing for most of the party. One person, who shall be named Dum Dum from now on, decided he'd play as Saiyan from Dragon Ball and expected everything that they could do. He didn't expect to be a Goku or Vegeta level strong at our starting level, but wanted to get there eventually. He also decided to play the absolute dumbest Saiyan ever because all Saiyans are fight-hungry idiots. Which, one, no they're not. Two, little bit yikes there, my guy. Every time the dum-dum's gonna talk, I'ma talk like an anime protagonist. I don't think that's how Goku sounds, but whatever, we're rolling with it. What didn't help was that the DM did set some ground rules for our backstories when he pitched the campaign, basically saying we'll all be part of the galaxy-wide military force to provide a reasonable amount of structure for everyone's first campaign. Someone as dumb as this person believed Saiyans to be wouldn't be allowed because they likely wouldn't pass certification for many different reasons. But the DM wasn't really forceful about it, so we ended up with that character anyway. We spent a few sessions with him, mostly having to deal with typical murder hobo problems, ruining our attempts at diplomacy. Until we got to a mining station on an asteroid that had been taken over by terrorists, who had been ordered to kill the leader and possibly provide clemency to those willing to surrender, as diplomacy had already been tried and failed. Perfect! Nothing for Dum Dum to screw up! Or so we thought. Upon docking our ship on the airlock and leaving, the door shut behind us and locked. We were then greeted by the terrorist leader over the speakers, telling us the airlock door had been rigged to explode if it opened in any way. Most of us immediately assumed we'd be able to disable it after we deal with the leader, so we prepared to move forward. I punched the door. What? He wouldn't even know what they were even talking about. I wouldn't back down from a challenge. Besides, he'd be fine. He doesn't really care about you guys. What? Huh? He doesn't care about you guys? Then why are you in the party? Why are you making a character that's supposed to play well with others, but you don't play well with others? You can put everybody at risk, including yourself as well. I mean, if everybody's starting off at lower level, and I mean, I guess if you're making a Saiyan, but to have a player that literally just says, my character doesn't care about anybody else on here, so he's gonna take up the challenge. Challenge of what? Opening a door that's rigged to explode? That's probably more likely to explode than not because they're dealing with crazy terrorists that probably just want to have the entire thing explode anyway. So you want to risk opening the door, risking your own life and everybody else's life just because it's a challenge? I don't think it's a challenge. At the same time, there's labels on things like styrofoam cups to say, don't put it in mouth, don't eat. And some people look at those labels and think it's a challenge. Why do we have labels for styrofoam cups to say, don't put it in mouth? How many people out there are digesting and eating styrofoam cups out there? What is going on with the world? But you'd be trained to not do this. He wouldn't listen. He punches the door. No, I'm not allowing a TPK. You can either have him stop or I'll blip him out of existence because I don't trust you to not pull this again. And so Dum Dum Saiyan disappeared from existence in that moment as he sat out the rest of the session, along with a few sessions after that. He ended up coming back eventually with another very frustrating character, but that's a different story. The dumbest part is that Dragon Ball itself says that Saiyans are not immune to a vacuum of space and he'd be just as dead as the rest of us, even if he survives the explosion somehow. The DM said the explosives would have gone fireball levels of damage. We were only level 3-ish, so everyone was very much in danger of dying outright. Dum Dum genuinely thought his character had a chance to live because Goku's lived through so much. Clearly I can too. Forgetting that Starfinder is not anime, and even Goku still had to train up the durability. I still play TTRPGs to this day because I did find it fun, but my first campaign having something like this was not a great first impression. Definitely not the worst horror story out there, but hopefully a somewhat enjoyable one instead of a nightmare fuel. Thank you so much for your story submission. I actually really enjoyed it. But also, Goku, I'm pretty sure, had to go on several training arcs. Isn't there like several seasons where literally it's just like things happen, bad guy appears, Goku and his friends go on a training montage or some such, right? Isn't that like the most common thing in anime? And I'm pretty sure every single like Dragon Ball season out there and every single arc of Dragon Ball out there has the protagonist go through super training, go through some sort of super secret training or some super power training to unleash better potential and more cooler power. Isn't that the whole thing with anime? I mean, I don't know, man, but I would expect that for your Starfinder character that's been specifically balanced by the DM to make sure that it will be balanced and not be overpowered. Just because you're playing as a Saiyan doesn't mean you ignore all rules of Starfinder. In Starfinder, you have a limited pool of HP, and every other stat out there that is a limited resource, and HP is a limited resource. Having to bust down an airlock to a door that's rigged with explosives potentially just means everybody's gonna die, including your character. And also the attitude, dude. I feel like on attitude alone, you should just make the player set out for even longer until they change the attitude. If you come in with a player character that literally cannot care whatsoever about the well-being or the lives of their fellow party members, then what's the point of having them in a party? I don't care if you're making an arrogant, obnoxious, or self-important character. As long as your character plays well with the party. Morrow as a character can be a little bit prickly at times. He doesn't like to deal with Fae, he doesn't really like to deal with Drow, and he sure as hell doesn't trust any tiefling out there, and for the most part gonna think of every tiefling as suspicious. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna just completely sabotage the experience for every other player by playing Morrow as being completely uncooperative. I will still cooperate with everybody because as a player, I want to make sure I'm playing with everybody at the table, DM and players included. If I play as some sort of antagonistic a-hole that can't get along with anybody, then what's the point of me even joining in at that point? The whole point is to play together and not completely screw everybody else over, unless you want to play that kind of thing. If they want to be able to do that, I don't know, play some sort of social deduction games where we just gaslight each other. Don't play Starfinder or any other TTRPGs out there that have this cooperative element to them, which I mean at this point it's like 99% of them, but hey, maybe you'll find one out there that does have the cooperative element. Either way, thanks so much for the story submission. Let's get to the next story for today. The Door of Doom by Ryan Miller. About 12 years ago, I joined a convention game table run by a representative from White Wolf Studios, people that made the World of Darkness games back in the day. The guy had one job: show us the cool new book, Advanced Armory Reloaded, that was just released for the new World Darkness, then run me and 5 other players through one short adventure in the book. It was supposed to take 2 hours, at least he only suffered for 2 hours. We the players were encouraged to use options in the new book to make a newly formed group of paranormal investigators who were normal, if trained and competent, regular humans. We're ready in 10 minutes, and we were collectively a SWAT officer, an expert in a quick draw collapsing baton, me, SWAT sniper who was good at shoot and nothing else, an investigative reporter, ostensibly our leader and party face, an ex-KGB spy who was just very scary, totally not Vinkman from Ghostbusters, a retired construction worker, and demolitionist who took the work home. We started in our office in downtown, waiting for the plot hook. And then we noticed a mysterious white door that was not in our main lobby previously. We did not like that. We immediately started inspecting the door from a very safe distance, poking at it with longest sticks we could find, guns at the ready. Meanwhile, the nerds tried every possible research to try and identify the door. Nothing. No previous blueprints, no news stories, no mentions in Russian occult tomes, no police reports, nada. So of course, we shot the door, repeatedly. With every bullet we owned, the door was unharmed, so of course the next step was to rig the door with explosives to try to blow it up. The office was destroyed, but the door was fine, so we went shopping for fertilizer, gasoline, stuff to make acid and napalm, a water saw. No matter what we tried, the door would not die, not even a scratch. We tried to exercise the door, nothing. All the while the reporter was getting bored. They're supposed to try to show you off about this new book, right? And they have you like use the armory and everything. I'm assuming it's supposed to try to gear up as like these tactical people that are very competent, and you guys are approaching this in a very tactical way. I feel like there's a misconnection. Like I feel like you're supposed to just open the door. Maybe the storyteller, I'm guessing storyteller from it's not Vampire the Masquerade, but it's something else. The GM, I guess, is supposed to try to just encourage you to just open the door, but they're just letting you just pick up gasoline and every fertilizer and just basically make explosives to try to interact with the door in some way. Crazy premise, but I'm hooked. I want to see how this ends. So the reporter just opened the door. Inside was a featureless white room, and we really didn't like that. So we did what any sensible trained paranormal investigator would do. We brought triple of everything we just used, thanks spooky KGB funding, and tried to kill the room. This room did appear to take damage, but repaired itself totally as soon as the room was unobserved, which of course meant we had to locate and pay a homeless man to sleep in a creepy room for a week. The reporter was in charge of the actual talking. We guided the homeless man through the setting up cameras, a heart monitor, COT, hot plate, mini fridge, TV, Xbox, and microphone so that we can find out what happens to those who enter the mysterious door. And we waited and waited and waited and waited. KGB then asked if they could retroactively roll to have stolen some C4 and packed it into the TV without the rest of us noticing. This It's supposed to run you through some sort of an adventure, but what is this adventure? Is it just the room being the mysterious thing? It's so vague. Did it tell you like what is this premise is supposed to be? Are you supposed to do you get any kind of directions about what you're supposed to do with the room? Maybe like a general like, yeah, you're supposed to go inside the room or look at something in the room. Oh, you spot something weird at the end of the room. Maybe you should interact with it kind of thing. Or are you just kind of supposed to go by instinct? The guy who just wanted to run a game with concern and regret in his eyes said sure. 2 successful rolls later, KGB says they got impatient and detonated the C4 on day 3. Another house rattling explosion later, the homeless man and the room destroyed until we looked away for 2 seconds. Then the room was fine, but everything else was gone. We the players were terrified, excited, and about ready to try some more extreme violent experiments after another research montage. The guy was not, and called the session at 1 hour and 50 minutes, explaining we never even got into the actual adventure. He gave us a quick synopsis on how the investigation was supposed to go, then sent us on our way to prepare for the next table of players on his schedule. It was a funny story at the time, but now, over a decade later, I see that we were just horrible to this guy, who just there to do the job. I could argue that his insistence that we created competent characters gave us an excuse to act with the extreme caution that we showed, but in the end, we just did not engage with a hook. Bad enough at home table, even worse at an event where people assume you're there to play the adventure you sign up for. I'm sorry, White Wolf Rep guy. I promise I learned my lesson. I engage with the adventure in front of me and only shoot doors occasionally. 3 bullets at most. This is just a comical story. I mean, yeah, if the guy is trying to show you some sort of adventure, you kind of need to go with a hook. Mysterious door, what's inside? Let's step inside, see what's up, see what's going on. But at the same time, the premise was to make competent tactical dudes that using the new armory system and stuff and new gear and everything. So you guys did what you thought you would do. And I don't know, I think it's just a really silly story. I don't think there's a horror story here in particular. Yeah, on one hand, you didn't really engage with the door. You did engage with the door in some capacity, just not with how it was written to engage with the door. I feel like maybe that could be some sort of a feedback for the future to maybe put something inside the door for players to engage with or interact with. Maybe instead of just a room, it's a hallway with many doors, and it gets players to actually want to interact and investigate and check things out and step in. Because at the end of the day, you could have these kind of players that also are going to be like, well, I don't want to go inside the door. It might be scary, might be eldritch. I'm supposed to be a paranormal researcher. This is paranormal. I don't want to go in there, chief. Don't make me go in there. I don't want to step inside the creepy room. But like, I don't know, man. I think it's kind of funny though. Anyway, what else? What a lovely story. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.